Hey there friends, it's Liz from the Peacock Homestead, and I just wanted to say happy fall, y'all. It's finally my favorite season and it's been so wonderful. The weather has been a little bit wet, but it's been a little chilly and I love that. And all the colors of the leaves are so vibrant with the red and the yellow and the orange. It is so beautiful and amazing. In this week's video, I'm going to be baking some bread, making some sourdough donuts, and I'm also going to be canning up a little batch of pizza sauce. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, let's get into the video. I'm also getting some tomatoes coming out of the garden, just trickling out. So I'm saving them, putting them in the freezer to make different things. And I'm also getting some peppers out of my garden. They're finally showing up. I have some banana peppers. I also have green and red peppers, just bell peppers. And I also spotted this little eggplant, so I'm super excited. I might be able to get an eggplant this year. And there I have some jalapeno peppers finally showing themselves. And I also spotted a pumpkin, my very last pumpkin. I'm just gonna let that ripen up and then we'll pick that and bring that in the house. I started this week wanting to make some of my own cream cheese. So I'm making a Swiss style cream cheese and it calls for 1 quart of heavy cream. So I'm just going to heat that up to around 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I am actually boiling some eggs because the hubs asked me to boil eggs for lunch. And I was going to have some tomatoes and eggs and we'll have a really nice lunch. For this recipe, you're going to need some calcium chloride. So I'm just going to use 1/4 of a teaspoon of calcium chloride diluted in a 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. And then I have that mesophilic culture starter, so I'm going to be using that as well. So I'm just stirring in my calcium chloride and giving it a really good stir, and then I can come back and add a pinch of the mesophilic culture, literally one little pinch, just to give it that wonderful cream cheese flavor. And then I am just going to let that sit for 2 minutes. Now I'm stirring it, give it a really good stir, and we are literally adding 1 drop of rennet because you don't want it to be rubbery, so I want to make sure it's 1 drop. And I'm adding that to some non-chlorinated water. I have around 2 tablespoons of water just because I don't want my cream cheese to be watery and it'll be less whey to actually strain out. So I'm making sure I'm mixing that well. And this is the last step. So all you have to do is give that a really good stir, and then you're going to let that sit overnight. I'm just going to let this sit on my counter overnight for about 14 to 16 hours. And then we'll come back to it and we'll put it in the cheesecloth in the morning. This is one of my little daily harvests for this week. I got some eggs that morning, a few cucumbers, and 2 zucchini. So it is the next morning and I'm going to take this and put it in the cheesecloth, and then I'm just going to add half of the cream cheese to the cheesecloth, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to come back, add the rest of the cream cheese and add another teaspoon of salt, and that's going to give it a really good flavor, and the salt is actually going to help pull the whey out of the cheese. So I'm just going to make sure I put 2 teaspoons in there. And then I'm going to hang it on my cabinet for about a good 9 hours. I usually let it hang for a whole day of work, and then I'll come back after work and scoop them into the containers and store them in the fridge. So I was going to do a few things with the cream cheese. I could make a cheesecake. I was going to make some cinnamon rolls, but I ran out of time, so hopefully I'll have that in my next week's video. But this is after work, and I am just going to fill my 2 little containers and store them in the fridge. And these will last about a good 2 weeks. I have experimented and tried to store it in the freezer, but it gets grainy, and so what I did with it is I made a cheesecake with it, and it turned out really good. We love using it for our bagels. I've had made a cheesecake before and it turned out amazing, and then we just put a little bit of jam on top, and that definitely was the bee's knees. I'd have to say my favorite way of using this cream cheese is on a bagel with cowboy candy, or on top of some veggie crackers. That is delish. Ever since we've been making the homemade version, I think I've made it a good handful of times now. We really do prefer the homemade version over the store version. This week we also planted our strawberry plants, so we received those in the mail from Gurney's, and we decided to plant this in a more sunnier area, so this is a perfect spot, and we'll be super excited to hopefully get strawberries next year. This week for lunches we had tomatoes and that mozzarella that I had made, and of course topped with the basil that I had in the garden. Then I added a little pinch of salt and pepper. I wanted to do quick and easy lunches because we've been working outside a lot and trying to get projects done on the homestead, so I figured this would be super fast and definitely delicious. So we've been working on the gardens. Tom's been actually building a bunny pen. It's a bunny hutch, so I can't wait to show you guys that. And we've also been working on a few other things. He got the roof on his garage, so that's super exciting. And we've just been trying to get busy, and hopefully we'll be able to get the wood stove in before all the snow comes. But this is what our lunch looked like on that day. It was super quick and easy, and it definitely hit the spot. This week I made a little batch of pizza sauce, and it is the roasted tomato and garlic pizza sauce from the book The Complete Canning Guide from Better Homes and Gardens. And I just decided that I wasn't going to roast the tomatoes, that was fine. But I have 10 pounds of Roma tomatoes, well, mixed tomatoes. I have a lot of Romas in there. And I have a few cloves of garlic. I have about 4 or 5 cloves in there, and I'm going to use a half a cup of bottled lemon juice, and I have some pepper and salt in there, and I'm also going to be using 1 cup of vodka because I didn't have red wine, so I'm kind of winging this recipe but it is going to be delicious on our pizzas. I also put 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then I'm going to add some amazing basil. And it is amazing because I love it. And it smells so wonderful too. So I'm just going to add about 3 tablespoons. I thought that was enough, but I made sure the sauce was cooked all the way down and to my thickness that we prefer on our pizzas. And then I added the basil, cooked it for about a minute. And now we are going to get these in our pint jars. So I just fill my jars up to the neck, or you could do a 1/2 inch of headspace, and you're going to want to wipe the rims in the jars, adjust the lids, and screw on the bands finger tight. And I process these in my steam canner for 35 minutes. I definitely prefer making my own pizza sauce versus getting it at the store because you can add your own flavors that your family prefers, and you're actually saving a ton of money doing it yourself. One of my projects this week was to make bread. I usually make 2 loaves of bread. I'll keep one out and pop one in the freezer. This week I decided to grind my own grains. I'm using hard white wheat berries. And then I'm going to add some all-purpose, so just half all-purpose flour and half of the ground hard white wheat berries. So the only way to get the hubs to eat this is to do half and half. And I'll make it in different meals. I usually make sandwiches throughout the week, or we'll have toast for breakfast. But this week I'm going to be making French toast for dinner. I like having quick and easy meals throughout the work week, so then I don't really have to think about what I'm going to be taking out or whatnot for dinner. This is the recipe that I went by, and then it is going to rise for about 1 to 2 hours, and it just depends on the temperature in your house. And then I let that rise for about 2 hours because it's a little chilly, the beginning of fall, but I'm definitely not complaining. I love the cooler weather. I am definitely a fall girl. I'm just flouring the surface generously, and I punch down the bread and divide this up into 2 and get it in my greased pans. And I'm going to bake this for about 40 minutes or until the internal temperature is 200 degrees. My oven is preheating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to pop these in the pan and let them rise for about 1 to 2 hours. And I usually don't time it, I just kind of eyeball it and make sure it's over the edge of the pan about 1 to 2 inches, and then we'll get them in the oven. They turned out pretty good. They could have risen a little bit better, but that's fine with me. I'm gonna let these cool, and then we're gonna make some French toast. All right, the bread is all cooled off, and now we're gonna get this sliced and start making some French toast. So I just wanna show you how nice and squishy this bread is. It's just like the nice soft store-bought bread, except for you know who cooked it and you know the ingredients that you put in it, as well as you can cut it to any size you want. So I usually store my bread in a Ziploc bag or a vacuum pack it using the pulse button on the vacuum sealer. But I'd like to invest in some bread bags. Let me know if you guys ever use bread bags and if it keeps the bread actually fresh. So I just have some scrambled eggs here with salt and pepper, getting that into the pan. And then for my batter for my French toast, I just use scrambled eggs and a little bit of cinnamon, a dash of sugar like my grandma taught me, and then I soak each side, and I used olive oil. I use whatever I have on hand. If I have butter, olive oil, or beef tallow, and then I get those cooked up, and I'm just serving it with some maple syrup and butter and the eggs on the side. It's time to make the donuts. So this week, actually for 2 weeks, my hubs has been asking me if I will make those sourdough donuts that I made not that long ago, because he was craving some donuts, and I figured sure, I wouldn't mind to have a couple donuts myself. So I'm getting those all rolled out, and then I'm just taking these biscuit cutters and cutting out the donut shapes. And then I was going to take a smaller biscuit cutter and cut out the middle so we can have rings and donut holes. So this dough actually has to sit in the refrigerator overnight, and then you roll it out and cut them to the shapes that you like. I think making a hole in the middle helps it cook better, because I have tried to make the donuts without the holes in the middle and it takes forever to cook. The outside gets too dark, so it doesn't really taste good. So definitely with these donuts you want to put a little hole in the middle. She calls for the cap to an oil, like an olive oil bottle or anything, and I think I'm going to do that next time just to make smaller little holes. But I got these frying in about 375 degrees Fahrenheit oil, and I'm using olive oil, and we're just going to get those cooked up, and I'm just going to plop them in some cinnamon sugar, and then we are going to enjoy those. We had these with a cup of coffee and it was amazing. It would be wonderful with coffee, tea, or just any time of day. And for dinner that night, I wanted to make a quick, easy meal. So I got some potatoes from my garden just with olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I'm frying up some burgers. And we are gonna have cheeseburgers and fried potatoes for dinner. And I almost forgot that we had a pickle on the side. So that was super delicious. It definitely hit the spot. He had one of his dill pickles and I had a hot sweet pickle. And that's it, friends. That's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Many blessings, and I'll see you on the next one.